minute,
or less
1 minute in counting.
at 6:30. I call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. We're the Graham Planning Board, and we're here tonight to conduct the city's business concerning planning and zoning. If you're here to speak tonight, you will be given an opportunity to speak at the proper time. You will know which one you're here for. We got a couple of things on the agenda tonight. So you will be given an opportunity to speak if you're here to speak tonight. All right, I'm gonna take a roll call here for quorum. Mr. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Benesh. Here. Chair Dean Ward's here. Mr. Wooten.
Here.
Mr. Stark.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Thank you, guys. All right. If everybody would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Damn. Right in the middle of it. Everybody have opportunity to review last month's meeting, minutes?
Yes.
Any changes or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, we accept the minutes.
Second, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, Cameron, let's go to number 6, new business.
Yes, sir. So this is a request to rezone pretty much a half-acre lot at 200 South Marshall Street from O and I Office and Industrial to B2 General Business. The lot is currently vacant and surrounded by a car wash across Marshall Street, the post office across Pine Street, abuts the dentist office on the southern property line, and abuts single-family home on the eastern property line. This property is listed on the future land use map as downtown residential. This land use area describes principal uses as detached single-family homes with supporting use of places of worship, daycares, park facilities, schools, civic spaces, neighborhood-oriented commercial, small professional offices, live-work units, and home occupations, provided they do not generate excessive traffic and parking. The B2 zoning district has an array of potential commercial uses that could be viewed as non-neighborhood oriented. Without certainty of the intended use and the additional uses the district would allow, it is difficult to determine whether or not the proposed zoning change would be consistent with the future land use plan. That's all that I have.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Mr. Cox, I presume you're here to represent yourself tonight?
Jason Cox, 200 North Main Street.
Mr. Chair Ward, do you mind making a motion to open up the public hearing?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Well, I opened it. I didn't make a motion to open it, but I'll do it.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to open public meeting.
Second.
You want me to restate?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
There you go. You're good now.
Heard. So as Cameron noted, it is currently O and I. However, and it may be helpful, are you able to pull up so that they can kind of see the visuals?
Yeah.
With the parcels? And he and I have exchanged some correspondence. Actually, a significant number of the parcels along that same eastern side of Marshall Street are and have been zoned as B2 for as long as we can tell. Cameron went back and looked at some research, and there were a number of parcels that are B2 on that side of the street that he could never find at any point that they were rezoned. If you look along that line, you'll basically see a number of B2 parcels on the same side of the street as we are. So really, if you look, we're going from B1 to B2 once you start crossing that street. So we're just looking to basically put the same general rights that a number of other parcels already have on the same side of the street.
Anything further?
So if you like, I mean, as I said, it's a natural transition from B1 looking across the street to the northwest, directly across the street is already B1. And typically you would expect to see a progression from B1 to B2 to O and I rather than a direct across the street transition from B1 all the way down to O and I. Typically you would see some sort of spreading of that, which again is evident by the actual zoning of a number of the other parcels that have been B2 for as long as we know. So again, the majority of the parcels on the west side of Marshall are either B1 or B2. or sorry, on the west side are B1, on the east side are B2. These include Rich and Johnson Funeral Home, which is B2 zoned and actually goes all the way back to Melville Street, which he can show you right there. And as you see, basically, there's the post office and then there's the subject property we're speaking of. Parcels at 111 and 109 North Marshall are also B2 despite being currently residential uses. In fact, there's actually even B1 zoning on the east side of North Marshall currently at the corner of Elm and Marshall Street and is currently used as a parking lot. So we have B1 going all the way to basically the same place that we're asking for B2. And we have a number of B2 parcels that have been that case for as long as anyone's able to determine.
You know, with this O and I right now, it's actually backing up to a residential section.
As is our number of the B2 that are on the same side of the street.
What are you proposing to put on that lot if it was to be zoned B2?
I mean, we'd look at some sort of project that would be in keeping with the B2 zoning.
But the B2 zoning would allow a gas station, a convenience store.
As do all of the other B2 parcels in exactly the same situation.
I mean, there's just
At the present, there's basically spot zoning where certain parcels have B2 on the same side of the street and the same distance from Court Square. And then quite bluntly, somewhat randomly, various parcels do not have that zoning.
Any questions?
Matter of fact, as just an example, at the present, the O and I zoning that the post office sits on, that's an illegal use under the current zoning. Technically, that would need to be a B2.
Okay.
And again, directly across the street is B1.
I can understand across the street there, it's not backing up to the residential neighborhoods there. That's why I was asking the question, because I would certainly,
Actually, there is B1 on the other side. That parking lot backs up to residential is B1 zoned.
parking lot are you talking about?
I believe we have a parking lot, unless my mental map is wrong. We have a parking lot
Are you talking about the city's lot there?
on the east side of North Marshall, at the corner of Elm and Marshall. Directly next to residential. Matter of fact, it's directly next to residential. That's then directly north of that is residential that's been zoned B2 for, again, as long as anyone is able to tell. So we have B1 residential, B2 residential. Same side of the street, same distances. And actually, we have B2 extending, if you look all the way to the east to Melville Street. South of that, we also have B2 extending all the way east to Melville Street. And in addition, a number of the documents from the city actually speak of Marshall Street as being a corridor and reference it for that purpose.
Any questions for Mr. Cox?
I have one question for you, Mr. Cox. With as wide and broad a base as what could be put on that property, do you have any inclination at this point what you may indeed put on that property?
So the most likely would be some sort of retail on the the ground floor, and possibly office or residential above that.
Do you have any possible buyers interested in that property?
We haven't currently marketed the property at this time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any further questions for Mr. Cox? Thank you. Anyone else here to speak about this particular project tonight? If you would, please come forward and state your name and address.
My name is Larry Causey. I own the dental office adjacent to that property.
Thank you, Mr. Causey. What's your address?
204 South Marshall.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I would like to know what he's going to put on that property. I don't understand why he can't tell us. Retail could be anything. We don't need another bar. We don't need another tattoo parlor. I would like to know what's going on, what's going to be put on that property, and how much parking is he going to need? I don't want to be an overflow parking lot for him. I have patients coming and going. I just don't want my parking lot full of his customers. So, that's my complaint. And I don't understand why he can't tell us, and I'm not necessarily thinking about him. I'm thinking about the next person that owns it.
Right.
Because anything can go then. We have enough vaping, we have enough bars. Graham doesn't need that. I came here in 1979 because of Graham, a nice southern town, quiet. So, okay,
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
yeah.
Take this call.
Anyone else like to speak? If
My name's Ramona Cheek. I live on 209 East Pine Street, the house that joins this property that we're speaking of tonight. And that's my residence for 50 years plus. And I'm most interested in what would be put on that corner lot because that is my home. And we have two residents beside us. And my interest is, like Dr. Causey, it would be a quiet place. That's a residential neighborhood. And I'm most interested in the future of it for my well-being as well as my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Seeing as there's no one else, I'll close the public hearing to this.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible for me to ask Mr. Cox a question?
Absolutely.
Mr. Cox, can you come back up, please? And I know you don't really have an idea of what's going up there, but how many stories are you talking about putting in?
Well, I mean, B2
Or
is
is the
pretty
levels?
limited anyway. What is B2's limit as it is? I mean, a lot of what's being discussed here, I mean, B2 by default, I can't overflow into somebody else's parcel next door. I can't build something that's not allowed under the uses. I'm required to provide parking that I'm required to provide. I mean, there's already a number of requirements that are baked into the actual ordinance for the zoning. So obviously I'm not going to violate those.
So there's not a height requirement in the B2, but there is a subsection into the table or not the table, but the height and yard table, the setback table, that essentially states that anything over 50 feet requires an additional 1 foot of front yard depth for every 2 feet over 50 feet. So you think, it couldn't go that high because it's a pretty thin lot as it is right now. So you're losing front setback to, I guess, gain additional feet. So that's essentially the kind of how everything operates inside these zoning districts is it's more or less governed by if they have the ability to meet the setback requirement, if not with this extra caveat.
And if I may, I mean, basically the FAR that you wind up with on anything of that size is going to limit to about 3 stories anyway, just by default. You're just not going to be able to fit ingress, egress, parking, setbacks. You're going to cover your FAR very quickly. Yeah, of course. Understood. And if I may, since you asked me to come up, I mean, effectively what we're asking for is effectively the same rights to the property that numerous of other parcels already have exactly that same general space.
Thank you. Any further for Mr. Cox?
No, sir.
One last time, anybody else like to come up and speak?
My name is Bonnie Blaylock. I live at 215 East Pine Street in Graham. I live one house down from the Cheeks, who Ms. Cheek just spoke. I would ask that y'all seriously consider this change. We are a residential area, and what could possibly go in and have a direct effect on our homes and our life right there in the corner. And I just simply ask that you seriously consider the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Blaylock? No, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing there's no one else, I'll close the public hearing for the discussion between us.
You
I
want to
make a motion close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Sorry.
Cameron, if you would, I want you to bring up the, table of permitted uses.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I've got it here, but I won't, for the B2 is, I mean, it's extreme from one to another.
Of course, I got it pulled up on the other computer.
Thanks. Over the years, I've seen several potential projects come for that piece of land there. And the B2 zoning is just a wide array of things in the permitted table of use that, in my opinion, don't fit that piece of land there without knowing how many parking spaces, what type of business, how much traffic it's going to generate. And, if it was to be rezoned tonight, a wholesale distribution could go there. Not only wholesale distribution, but a tattoo parlor, a utility building sales and storage and sheds could go there. I mean, it's just a whole wide range of things that can go there that potentially could create a lot of problems for the neighborhood and not be in the best conformity for the city of Graham. O&I there allows a lot of things also right now that could go there. But generally, O&I, we're talking about doctor's offices, medical facilities, hair, beauty shops, nail salons, and stuff like that. I just don't see that being a good fit for that parcel there. A conditional zoning maybe, but not B2.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that B2 offers a whole lot of permitted uses that are not really compatible with that neighborhood. That already.
Well, I just feel like with the B2 on that particular corner lot, set a precedent that we possibly would not want to have on that corner lot because it's so broad of what could be put in there, it would affect the other businesses if it was something there that was not, if you will, comfortable for the neighborhood, if you will, that has to share residential along with its business. That's the part that is very concerning to me. I just don't think it fits, the B2 fits right there.
Mr. Bailey?
I have to agree with you, Mr. Chairman, there. The B2 is a little broad, possible conditional zoning, with a question mark there. Agree with you.
Young?
I agree. We're here for the residents, people that live around there. So I'm inclined to hang on their side. So, but I agree with you.
Cameron, am I reading this correctly, that a tow yard could go there, vehicle towing service could go there, and they could store vehicles there also on that lot?
So, I think part of that instance is the case. When it comes to, I guess, the laydown aspect of it, they would also meet another zoning classification, which would be a storage yard, which is only permitted in the I1 zoning district. So it'd almost just be like a central hub of,
They can store the records there, not cars.
yes, sir. Essentially, it's just like an office space, where people could come to pay and then go pick it up off site. Or they bring the car in whenever somebody comes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we disapprove this request.
You got your sheet there.
Oh, yeah. I'm blind.
Whether
Here somewhere.
whether it's consistent.
I think this is the first time I've done this.
That's all right.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Page 4.
Yeah, I'm on page 4. All I've got is the this is for approval. Okay. Mr. Chairman, the requested zoning district holds uses that could be viewed as inconsistent with the downtown residential land use classification in the form of appropriate neighborhood oriented commercial uses. So I would like to make a motion that we do not approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Cameron, next item.
Okay, thank y'all. So this is a request to rezone 3.29 acres of land at 1133 South Main Street from B2 General Business to CR Conditional Residential for the purpose of developing a single 3-story, 60-unit, age-restricted, being 55 plus and 55 and over multifamily development. The lot is currently vacant and is abutted by single-family homes on the north and vacant commercial and residential land on the south. The property is listed on the future land use plan map as both a commercial corridor and suburban residential. The commercial corridor land use area has a desired pattern of having most future development be focused in strategically located clusters. There are no principal or supporting uses listed, but does mention an appropriate density of 6 dwelling units per acre. The suburban residential land use area describes the principal uses in this zone are predominantly detached single-family homes, and that new neighborhoods may include a range of duplexes, townhomes, and small-scale multifamily dwellings of 12 units or less. The lot also falls within the Highway 87 South Main Street Overlay District, which has some additional requirements on building design standards and signage for the proposed development. And that's all that I have.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak about this project tonight? The petitioner first. It's your project.
Yes,
Great.
Motion to open.
thank you.
Wait just a minute. I'm gonna make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Your name and address.
Thank you. Granville Tate, Pivotal Housing Partners, 9100 Center Point Drive, Westchester, Ohio.
Thank you, sir.
Well, first of all, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all. I represent Pivotal Housing Partners. We are developers. We are in 15 states. Currently, we have 6 properties in North Carolina. We've got properties in Winston-Salem, Walkertown, Gastonia, Greenville, and Fayetteville. We are looking to develop 60 units of housing for people 55 and older. It'd be 45 1-bedroom units, 15 2-bedroom units. It's a 3-story development. As was stated, the property is currently vacant, and we would ask for your approval.
Would you repeat how many 1-bedrooms?
45,
45, yes.
15 2-bedroom.
Where is your proposed parking for guests?
So the proposed parking for guests is in the, is within the parking lot that you see. It's, nothing is labeled. We have, I believe, 98 units 98 parking spaces on site, which meets the required code for number of spaces per bedroom.
Exactly, but do you have any guest parking? What if all units have guests that come see them?
I'm pretty sure if you give me, I can't read that, so I'm just pull it up here on my.
Cameron, make that plan bigger for him if that'll help him. I didn't ever see that. It was one of the things.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Over in the text.
Oh, I just had it over there.
Yes, so it's
Go ahead.
98 spaces. It's which, as I said, yes, it meets the required minimums. I think that what we found in a lot of our senior developments is the parking is more parking requirement than actually people who own cars. And so for the most part, I think we're never going to have that parking lot full.
And what is your proposed exterior going to look like on these buildings? I know you have a rendition in here, but is it going to be masonry, vinyl, brick?
It's a combination of the two. So you can see masonry on the bottom. And then it's a combination of vinyl and hardy plank siding.
Does these buildings have, this one building here, does it have elevators in it?
Yes, it will.
Does it have anyone who's on the property from 8 to 5, a manager or somebody like that,
Yes, it have on-site management.
property management?
That's correct.
I know that you're asking for conditional zoning here. Was there any thought given for first floor having retail in it being in a B2 district?
We did not consider any type of retail in the first floor. We are not retail developers. Sometimes we find that, trying to do something that's outside of what you're good at doesn't always work so well. So from that standpoint, we just focused on, what we do well, which is building apartment complexes.
Does this complex have any dog parks, car washes that's outside, any outdoor activities?
There is essentially a sort of seated area, kind of gazebo space there. There's also a garden area on the sort of in the triangle sort of piece. And then there's just some open space as well. But no like car wash sort of areas. In fact, it's my understanding that just to the south of us, a commercial car wash is being built. So I think people will utilize that.
Cameron,
What's your name?
can you make it a little bit bigger? I was trying to see. I think you highlighted where the gazebo was going.
Yes, sir, right here. You see?
Okay, yeah, I got it. Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, because you were showing over here. Okay.
There's the gazebo right here.
Yeah,
Um,
I see it.
And as far as Blair Street is concerned, are you proposing that you are going to open that up? Is you're going to run your connection point all the way and that is going to be an open thoroughfare and a point of egress?
Yes, sir. That is what we are proposing, is to open that up. We'll open it such that it would be two,
Just,
Yes.
ma'am, I'll give you an opportunity, just a minute, let him talk to us and then I'll give you an opportunity. We'll get all your questions answered.
Mhm.
Thank you. But
so,
you,
yes, sir. So the idea would be to open it up as essentially a second means of egress.
Any other questions here?
This one for Cameron. Cameron, I'm assuming the tech committee ran this
Yes, sir.
pretty
So
hard and fast.
we've reviewed it, and the comments were essentially addressed. I think the only thing that, engineering it made them include a note, about the stormwater area, matching the rate for a 100-year storm. It will be supplemented by underground detention if necessary. That's something that they requested that they included on here. Of course, they have to meet the stormwater ordinance requirements regardless, but since it's a conditional zoning, we'd rather have it on the plans than not. And one of the other aspects, but I think it's been cleared, has been the driveway site distance with NCDOT. But that was one of the concerns with the first round, but they resubmitted, and I think they took it with Stride that it should be fine with this area with the site distance triangle running down.
Yeah,
South Main
That
Street.
was gonna be the next question. was
Yes, sir.
About the driveway.
And if anything were to come up in the future in regards to the driveway and NCDOT requirements, it would be part of the technical review committee, and we have I guess specific things that we can do outside of the conditional rezoning approvals during the technical review committee process.
And it meets all the emergency vehicle requirements.
Yes, sir. So the fire department actually only requires one point of ingress and egress for less than 100 units. And so it has no issues in that front. But the development ordinance mentions that 25 lots requires 2 points of access. So that's a question for interpretation of, is this one lot or is this, 60 based on the number of units inside there? So
Cameron, if you would bring up an aerial of 1204 and 1205 Blair Street.
yes, sir. Here we are.
So it's not no buffers there that buffer, no tree buffers or anything that would buffer that property.
Are you in reference to existing out there right now? For
Existing.
like retaining, I got you.
Right. Hey, thank you for that.
Yes, sir. So everything on site would be planted, and pretty much, I don't know if there's really much to retain on site. It's a pretty flat area out there with not a lot.
Mr. Tate, what's your proposal for landscaping coming down the, that side of the property that borders, Blair, the houses there on Blair? I see you got a 25-foot, setback there.
Mhm.
And what is your proposed or landscaping going to be in that 25-foot there area?
Yeah, I would say, our normal thoughts around landscaping is to create something that does not require a lot of maintenance, right? So we look at putting in trees or bushes. That's, normally ideal, what we like to put in such that it doesn't, as I said, require a lot of maintenance, not like grass where you have to get out there and cut it constantly. But what I would say is, given that this is a conditional rezoning, and we're going to have to obviously submit to the planning department again, I think we're open to suggestions as to if someone has ideas in terms of would they rather trees or would they rather, some tall, narrow evergreens in between. I think we're open to suggestions with respect to that.
If I may, I'll just point of clarification. It does have the 25-foot type B yard on here. Just for y'all's understanding, that's 4 canopy trees per 100 linear, or no, excuse me, 3 canopy trees per 100 linear feet, 5 understory trees per 100 linear feet, and 25 shrubs per 100 linear feet.
Cameron, there's also a list of the suggested trees somewhere on that side note? Yeah.
And so we also have a master list over here of what we'll approve on site. And it's essentially, unless it gets changed during this time, if there's a specific suggestion for a specific type of planting on site, it would essentially have to adhere to whatever the ordinance requirements are, in this case with the 25-foot type B buffer and what the arborist recommends. or what the sheet recommends and they pick off of.
I'm looking at the drawing and, do you have between the current residential property and your property, any kind of a fence or barrier planned?
Right now, there's not a fence planned. That's currently not on the plans, but depending on, feedback sometimes and during our process, with planning, we could put a fence in, but as it stands right now, there's not a fence. It's just the landscape
Just thinking
plan.
about
It's-
security.
Mhm.
Just thinking about security for the apartments, the people 55 and older. That might be something to consider.
Okay.
At least from my 55 plus viewpoint.
And just as a, I guess, point of reference again is, if it gets through here, gets through council and gets approved, there wouldn't be really anything where planning staff would impose that they are required to put a fence out there on
Right.
site. So it would just be a general discussion between the
Just,
developer. and
just a
engineer.
suggestion
Yes, sir.
at that point. Or a condition.
Are you the current owner of this property?
I am not the current owner. We are purchasing it from the current owners.
Mr. Young? You have any questions?
I don't.
No, sir.
No questions this
Okay.
time.
Thank
I
you.
would have one other comment, just from what we've seen here in this area concerning apartments, even seniors, that we do tend to have a lot of guests. This is a neighborly kind of place where grandkids, kids and grandkids do actually come and visit their grandparents. Just a thought, you might run into that problem with a parking lot full.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else here that would like to speak about this? Please state your name and address.
I'm Neva Madison, and I'm at 1204 Blair Street, but I'm actually here for 1204, 1205, and 1203. 1203 and 1204 and 1205. 1204 is mine, 1203, 1205 is my mom's, James and Linda Madison. I'm also speaking on 1200. She's probably going to talk anyway. 1201, which is the Fullers. So that street has been closed for years. So here's my concern. So Heritage Glen was built for 55 years and older in Burlington. It didn't work, so they sold them. So what happens when this is not accompanied by 55 years old and plus? Who else is going to come in there in the neighborhood? We've got retirees in there, older generation, and we have kids that play in that dead end road. That road is not wide enough for 2 cars to go down. The people do not have enough room in their driveways to park, so they park on the road. So if you're going to widen it, you're going to take these people's front yards. So when the kids are not going to have anywhere to play. Then if you're 55 years and older, you've got sheets across the street. I can hear sheets on my front porch. I can hear sheets on my mom's front porch. So just coming from a 45-year-old, if I was 55 years and older, I wouldn't want to live there because it's going to be too noisy, too much traffic. And then you've got whoever and whatever going to cut through that field and whatever sheets brings in. And then if he's got parking spaces, 98 parking spaces and not enough room for guests, that's going to trickle onto Blair Street. Then where's the residents going to park? So, to me, I don't see why they need to open up Blair Street or why another apartment complex is good for Graham. I'm gonna be honest with you, something else could be useful for that area besides that apartment complex. It's gonna make the house value drop in that neighborhood, and nobody wants to buy something that's on top of an apartment complex. If I decide to sell the house that my dad left me at 1204, I wouldn't buy it because I'm on top of a complex. So that's everything I have to say. I think I have very valid points, but again, I just, a fence, something, if they do get approved. But those just don't look like they would fit in ground. I mean, they just don't. And then you've got another example of apartments that are built for 55 plus, Autumn Trace in Burlington. They were built for 55-year-olds or plus. They went to income-based. Now they don't look all that great anymore. So that's just things that we need to consider. What if there's no 55-year-olds and plus that want to live in there? Right there at Sheets and that busy intersection, because I can go ahead and tell you that little opening that he's talking about, there used to be a white house that sat there and it's still a little driveway. When you come out on that curve, that's very, very hard to see to come out at that road. But Blair Street, I just don't feel like that needs to be opened. It's been dead end road for years and there's just no room.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for me? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyler Russell. I live at 1109 Rogers Road, but my family is also part owners of 111 South Main. So a few questions that I have. One, has there been a traffic study done for this to prevent, accidents or the impact that the travel and the new accommodations are just going to have? Can the current water, sewer, and emergency services handle the sudden increase in population? And if so, will the taxpayers end up funding the infrastructure upgrades to support that? And then changing from B2 to CR removes a lot of opportunities for businesses that could benefit for the entire community rather than 55 and older apartment complex. Also, is it going to be subsidized housing? Is that a part of the infrastructure with that? And that's pretty much what I had. I see a lot of traffic coming down Rogers now anyway, across from Blair. I can hardly even get out of my driveway as it is now. I could only imagine when they open that up, also taking the people's front yards, how that's going to impact me. But yeah, that's all I have right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Arlen Castrati. I own
Could you spell your last name?
Castrati.
Could you spell it, please, for the clerk?
I'm so sorry. Kastrati.
Your address?
1103 South Main Street.
Thank you, sir.
Am I allowed to ask questions directly, or I just pose the questions?
You can pose the questions to us and we will try to get you the answers.
Okay. Just piggybacking on the most recent questions. Basically, is this a type of residence where people will buy the individual apartments or rent them? And are there income limits, income minimums that are required for the residents? That's one of the questions that I have. Another one is, while they are 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments, are there limits on as to how many people can live in each unit?
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if I had any other questions. No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
My name's Janet Cates. We own the property at 1115 South Main, which is right next to this proposal. We also, family owns 1111 South Main. And we own the 1101 where the Quality Oil is. Okay. Just from the letter I received, I've been looking up things just to, see what the definition is. And what concerns us too is the restricted age multifamily development. That is, yes, 55 plus, but there only has to be one resident of age 55 in that apartment. And they have to have an income of 1,000 to 4,000, whatever the range is, I guess, for the developer. So that doesn't stop. And I have a grandson too, so don't get me wrong. But that doesn't stop family members from loading up, coming in, or living with grandma. Okay? And I think that I just don't think that we need that type housing in that area. I've spoke with people that live in the farm across the street, you know, the housing development there. And one man, the first house right there, he could not be here because his wife just had to go to hospice. But he told me he would try to give a phone call to the city, whatever about that. But he's concerned about traffic, and he's concerned about the amount of going on and traffic that will be there. For the house that I own with my son on 1115 South Main, which is right beside of that piece of property, it is zoned residential / commercial. So, you know, somebody could rent a business there, or somebody, you know, it can be residential living. But I just don't think I don't think that it would be to the advantage of the entire area on that South Main Street end to have this type of project there. You know, if we probably have 1,000 questions, but, and hopefully y'all do too. But that's my concerns, and I hope that you will find a nay in your vote when you discuss this. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Gates? Anyone else? Absolutely. Come on up. You need some help? We'll help you. We'll certainly come help you.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You got it.
Okay, I want you to be sure and hear me.
Can I get your name?
My name is Shirley Williams.
Shirley Williams.
I live on Blair Street. I've been there for 22 years. I don't have children that live with me, but there are other children on that street. Grandmothers live there. If you open up that street, from experience, the idiots that live in Graham, the ones that we call rednecks, whiz through there before they realize that it's not an open street. They don't care how they drive. We are too close to the road for anyone to even think about opening that up without widening it. But then if you do, you're taking our yards, and we're sitting on the road. We're sitting on the street. I could go on and on and on and on, but I know you don't have time. But please take this into consideration. I sit on my front porch. My neighbors come over and visit me, and we sit on the front porch together. I don't think we could do that if you open up that road, because we'll be breathing in the fumes from the automobiles. That's not healthy. I ought to know. I have COPD, I have many, many health problems that the fumes from these automobiles would cause me to suffer greatly. So please take into consideration how we, the old families that live there, that have lived there for years, please take into consideration what I say, okay? Don't take away my pleasure of sitting on my porch. I'm 92, I'll be 92 in September. Please don't take that privilege away.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams, what was your house number?
Pardon?
What was your house number?
1,200.
Okay, thank you.
Is that how I gotta get the attention?
Thank you. My name is Burton Cates. I am the husband of Janet Cates, who owns 1115 South Main Street. I've lived in Graham since 1952. The two problems I have with this undertaking is that it's federal based on an income of 1,000 to 4,000. The kicker to it is this. You only have to have one person in that each unit that's 55 years old. That's a problem. You have no control over that. And when you come down 87 and come into Graham, that's going to be the first thing you see. That is going to be the first thing that you see when you come into Graham on 87. And we all want it to be presentable. Is that the first thing we want to see is government housing as you come into Graham? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
One more thing. Do I have to come up?
Absolutely.
So again, if they do not get these income-based housing in 55 years and plus, all
Use your mic.
income, I'm so sorry.
That's how I could
Better.
hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Turn them up. Okay, so, again, like Mr. Cates was saying, I'm gonna piggyback off them. You got one person, and I already know about grandsons living with grandma over there. So, all I'm saying is, you've got one person, then you've got sheets. There's no telling what's gonna walk through that neighborhood or through these retired people's homes that are on Blair Street and do damage. I can already tell you that Miss Cates had some graffiti already on her house. So you're gonna put an apartment complex up there, and then you're gonna have more graffiti or more robberies or more break-ins, because you may have one person in there that's 55 years old and plus, and then you've got whoever. So just take that in consideration too.
Thank you. Anyone else that hasn't spoke? Thank you. Mr. Tate, would you come back up so we can address some of these questions? Did you have an opportunity to do a outreach to the neighbors or adjoining properties and meet with the neighbors prior to tonight's meeting?
I have not met with the neighbors prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay. You did hear the questions that's being raised tonight, and just, I want to clarify some things and try to get some answers for the neighbors here. Is there an age limit other than the leasee that rents the apartment that can stay there?
So the people who said that if your age restriction is 55 plus, only one person has to be age 55 plus to live in there. That is correct. The other category for age restricted housing is 62 plus. And if you're 62 plus, then everybody has to be 62 and over to live in that particular type of housing. The reason we said 55 plus is because of, number one, it gives you a broader amount of people to rent to. And then number two, as other people have stated, there are some situations in which you have a grandmother and a grandson or granddaughter living there. And it's a way for them to be able to afford their household. And, because otherwise, if you were in a 62, if it was a 62 plus age restricted, that grandchild could not live with the grandparent. So that is correct. In terms of some of the other questions I heard, I'd just like to say, I have no problem addressing these. And so, yes, this is, it would be income restricted as well. And what we're talking about is we're talking about people who possibly work at the Sheets, possibly work at the new car wash that's going to be built just to the south of us, people who probably work as tellers at the bank, people who work at, your local Starbucks or your Belks, something like that, people who are teachers' assistants. So it's a broad range of incomes that qualify. And I think a lot of people, and I'm just, I like to be open and honest with everybody I talk to. I think a lot of people, when they think about, any type of income restricted housing, they think about like Section 8 housing. I just want to say that's not what we're doing here. Okay, what we're doing is we're trying to build workforce housing that, accommodates people who are 55 and older, and people, who may be looking to downsize as they start heading towards retirement. So that's what we're talking about here. In terms of, opening up Blair Street, as I said, the reason we put that on the plans is because we were looking for a second means of egress. And a lot of places where we work, that is generally a requirement of the fire department. It's my understanding, at least from this particular meeting, that that is not required by the fire department here. So I think that's something we can certainly look at if that is a recommendation of this particular body, or if that's a condition of the zoning that we need to take that out. I think that's absolutely something that can be done. So from our standpoint, we aren't here trying to, lower anybody's property value. We aren't trying to, we're not trying to lower anybody's property value. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create housing that allows people who work in Graham, who may not be able to currently afford to live in Graham, the opportunity to live in Graham. And to the question of, do you want this to be the first thing you see when you're coming off of 87? Well, I think the first thing you're going to see is the car wash. It's not going to be our development. And I think that we build high quality developments, something that, I would be proud to live in. I think we manage them very well. So from that standpoint, I don't agree per se with some of the comments in terms of how the housing is being characterized. Just because one developer or one property owner does not take care of their properties, that's not what we do. I mean, the first thing we think about whenever we go into a municipality is, how are we going to serve the residents if we are able to build our development there? That's first and foremost. I stand behind that. And so not sure, Chair, if there are any other questions you want me to address, but I'm more than happy to.
Only 55 years and older. I got a few more questions about that. So I come into your complex and I apply for an apartment. I'm over 55 and I rent it and I allow 4 kids to stay there. 5 kids, young adults, kids under 55. Let's just classify it that way, under 55. Is that acceptable?
That's not acceptable. So if you rented a 1-bedroom unit, technically the most people that can be in the 1-bedroom unit is 2. If you rented a 2-bedroom unit, then it's 4. So if it's you and 3 minors that are yours or under your guardianship, that's okay. If it's you and 3 people who are not related to you, or not, there's some form of guardianship involved, then that does not work.
How would you enforce that?
That's enforced on the leases. So when somebody
Well,
comes
I
into,
understand it may be spelled out on the
Mhm.
leases, but how would you actually enforce it?
okay, so if someone came in and they rented it by themselves and then they just had, let's say, 3 other people living in their 2-bedroom unit who are not on the lease and who do not, and who are not their minor children, we would go to an eviction process with that person. We tell them they're in lease violation and that either those people need to leave immediately or, we would go through the eviction process.
Even more specific, who would be the one responsible for finding those situations where you either have non-related people or more than 3 people other than the lessee?
So it's our property management group. And so this would have an on-site property manager.
And your own site would be there 5 days a week or a couple of days a week?
5 days a week.
5 days. What is your market rent for this?
So the market rent would be approximately between $800 to $900 for the 1-bedroom units, and then approximately, $1,000 to $1,200 for the 2-bedroom units.
And does your leases have a maximum number of occupants
It
that can
does.
live in there?
It does.
Any other questions that we missed that someone asked? If
I'd
we-
like to ask you one
Okay.
question. When you make the point that you have other properties, such as what you're proposing here, and the upkeep is good, do you have a portfolio put together of current conditions and how those other units are kept up to date? Something you could share?
I don't have something like right now, but it's absolutely something I could have put together and provide to this body with respect to that. In terms of just general upkeep, I mean, we always have maintenance staff in addition to the property management. And, from our standpoint, we try to build our properties such they last and then also maintain them such that people want to live there and want to rent there. From our standpoint, it doesn't, we only make money if people are renting our units, and people are only going to rent our units if they feel safe, if they're clean, if they, are able to sleep at night without a whole lot of excess noise. So from that standpoint, that's how we operate. We operate to try to have our residents' enjoyment.
Thanks, sir.
Are y'all just a management company or are you the developer and
We're developer and owner
so you're gonna own,
and property manager.
you're
That's
not
correct.
building these to sell?
We're not building these to sell. We're long-term owners. We've been in business for 30 years.
And what is your last project that you done in North Carolina? Where was that at? What town?
We have a project under construction in Greenville currently. And we've got one that will be renovated in Walkertown this year.
Can you give me an address
Um,
or the name of it?
yes. So the one in Greenville is Hardy Village. The one in Walkertown is called I'm sorry, that's the new name of it. It's currently called Pinecrest.
Pinecrest.
Mhm. And that one's gonna start the renovation process
How old a property is that?
probably 2 months.
How old a property is that in Walkertown?
It is 17 years old. And it's about to go under renovation.
Mr. Tate, the property you have in Fayetteville, North Carolina, could you give me the name of that one and where it's located?
Just 1 second, I can. Apologies, my
Not a
phone is
problem.
running slow here, but I will get it. Just one second. Here we go. Cape's Landing. Cape's Landing.
Okay. Do you have an address on that by chance, the street?
1404 Deer Trail,
1404
Deer Trail Drive, Pebble.
Deer Trail.
Just another quick question,
Yes.
clarification on whether these would be condos or apartments?
Yes, these would be apartments, not for sale.
Any further questions for Mr. Tate? Mr. Tate, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Anyone else from the audience like to speak that hasn't spoken? Is it something new that we haven't heard?
Well, yes.
Well, come on up then.
One question I have, I'd like to know if the renovation at the complex that he's talking about, did they own it for 17 years and they're renovating it? Or did they buy it because it was, in bad repair? That's one question. The other thing I'd like to share is that the age-restricted multifamily zoning means that if he's doing 60 apartments, and you probably already know this, but if he's doing 60 apartments, only 48 of them have to meet the requirements. So that's 48 apartments. The other 12 can be rented to anyone based on what that definition stands for. So that kind of opens the door for a multitude of different, makeup of people. So, and the other thing I'm just going to say is that, yes, you can have a lease, and yes, you can say only 3 or 4 or 5 people live here, but that's really not what happens a lot of times. And it's very, very hard to get people out. So that concerns me too. And the Blair Street thing I didn't know about, and I just want to say that I just think that's one thing. I think that's would be a terrible situation for that neighborhood. And the other thing is, I believe you do have to have two ways to get in and out of your property, your business. I know that we were required to do that back about 10 years or so ago. So they have to have something that gives them another entrance exit other than the main one, I think. It's just me. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cameron, can you address that about egress?
Yeah, for sure. So, fire code has changed, within the past couple of years. It went from, I believe it was 50 up to 100 that required a second point of ingress and egress. As mentioned, as well, for the fire code aspect, it's 100 units that requires that 2 point of access easement or access areas. Development ordinance mentions that anything over 25 lots requires 2 points of ingress and egress. So like I said, that's a question of, are these lots or these dwelling units? When we're considering, I guess, I think it's more specific to subdivisions in a sense, being that any subdivision lot over 25 requires 2 points of interest. So I think we just adhere to whatever the fire code requirements are in regards to ingress and egress for the site.
All right, and in TRC, did anybody discuss a traffic study?
There was not one required, no, sir.
Okay.
That would have come from either us or the NCDOT, of course, and there's nothing in our ordinance requirement, and the trip count associated with the proposed development did not trigger NCDOT's requirements.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further questions from the board?
I have one more. I'm sorry. This is a good question. I apologize.
I'll let you.
The only other question I had, sir, with my research on this company is it was, I do believe, called MVAH Partners, and they rebranded due to Better Business Bureau ratings and other kind of troubles of that nature. Just wanted to clarify if that was the case or not with the research that I did. That's all.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. I'm entertain a motion to close it.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? All right. You want to talk about it here? Whoever wants to start first can take the lead.
Mr. Chairman, I think that, it's, just, we're here to represent the residents that live here and have lived here for several years, and, myself, I'm gonna have to side with them, and I don't recommend we approve it.
Mr. Chairman, all I would say, I believe it's a nice project. I believe it's a needed project. I believe this company will do what it says it's going to do. I just believe it's in the wrong location.
Had several
Okay.
several thoughts. First of all, I think a lot of us here have been very fortunate in a lot of ways that we've reached old age or older age, retirement age. And we have houses that are paid for, cars that are paid for, little to no debt, adequate social security, adequate retirement. And we're very fortunate in that respect. I think, however, there are a lot of folks in this area that are not so fortunate, that they're scraping every month to get by with what they get from Social Security and what little savings, whatever the situation is, family situation. So I would say that this kind of a project is necessary for a lot of folks. There are a lot of folks 55 and older that need a little help at this time of their life. However, and I commend you for that effort. I think it's a needed thing in this park. However, I've got several concerns. I went out there and looked at Blair Street. I looked at 87. I have to agree with you folks about traffic on Blair. It would be a nightmare on that street for that to be opened up. It is a narrow street, but I see a street that's been there for a long time, a lot of settled people, and a lot of history there. So I think traffic would be a problem, first of all. Secondly, I think traffic onto 87 at that point would be a nightmare as well. Anybody trying to make a left-hand turn out of that complex onto Graham, our main street in Graham, would be sitting there for a long time. It'd be a real problem. What's the alternative? To make the block, make a right-hand turn, go down Rogers, or not Rogers, yeah, Rogers, and then come back up, whatever that street is, Moore Road, I'm sorry, Moore Road. Thank you, Moore Street. And then come back up Rogers. So you're just exacerbating the traffic on Rogers and Moore Street there. I really don't have a problem with subsidized housing. I think as said earlier, that it's a necessary thing for a lot of folks. I have a lot of sympathy for those people who are in that situation. So if this is income restricted, subsidized housing, call it whatever you wish, I still think that's a good thing. A necessary thing, if not a good thing. I am concerned about the limits on the number of people. We've run into this in different situations where you have the possibility of a number of people living in an apartment or what do we call it?
Townhouse,
Not
condominium?
boarding home, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we've been struggling with the
Enforcement.
idea of how you would enforce keeping the number of people in a boarding house or some other apartment. Who's going to enforce that? How is that going to be enforced? What kind of legal ramifications are you going to come up against? So leases are only as good as the enforcement. They're only as good as the people that back them up. So, and I'm not impugning your efforts or whatever. I'm just saying that it's not a new situation, not a new situation here. I think it would have been good to have a meeting with the folks in that area ahead of time. Again, that's up to you. That's just an observation. So I guess what I'm getting down to is I think it's a needed kind of approach. It's a needed kind of property. I would agree with the other folks who have just stated, I don't think that's the right place for it. Excuse me, one other thing, the security would be a concern to me at that point. There's just too much opportunity in my observation of that area for people coming across that field, coming up 87. That's a major north-south thoroughfare. I would not feel safe there. And that comes from having lived in this area. I live about 5 minutes from there. I don't know that I would feel safe if I were 55 and older and living in that area right there. And again, you folks know better than I would. I think it's needed. I think it's just the wrong location.
Basically, I concur with many of the board's statements tonight. I too feel like it's a great idea, but it's just, in my opinion, too large a project for that particular location. If you'll use a word I'll take from that lovely lady there, an old redneck term, a square peg in a round hole is what I feel like is being tried to be obtained in that particular area with that large a complex. Another location may fit you better. I just don't see that being a good area for that particular project, creating possible security breaches to other property owners in that area is a big concern of mine. Traffic impact would be horrendous as well. And so I just don't think it's a good fit for that particular area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bailey?
I just got something I want to say briefly. A couple things I want to say is, I think Graham needs affordable living. I don't like the term subsidized. I mean, I guess you're talking to a board that came out of a project. So I'm kind of offended by that government thing there. And I do think Graham, as well as Graham, Gifford County, Alamance County, all the counties need affordable living there. Normally we get here in front of the board, they come in here with condos, $350,000, $400,000 homes there. I don't know who can afford that. When you're talking $400,000 for a 2-bedroom condo, I mean, I don't think I can afford that at this particular time there. I like the project. I looked up your information, Cape Landing. I own property in Fayetteville. I spent 18 years down in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I looked it up. Your housing is looks very good, manicured. I was impressed with that. Here again, being that I've been in Graham now for 19 years, I think it's a beautiful project. I do think we have a need for affordable homes in Graham and other counties. I just don't think this is the right fit, this particular location. I travel down 87. That's how I go to Fayetteville from Graham, from my house. I go right down 87, right down there by that Sheets where all that traffic is, right down there by Blair. It is getting very congested down in that area there. So I like your project. I think we need it. I don't think this is the fit for it. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you. I've looked at this for a long time, this project. It's a great project. But the location, trying to put it here on a B2 in the general business district without having some type of retail that faces Main Street would be no way that I could support it to begin with. If you had that, I still have a lot of other concerns that may or may not have, could have been addressed with the conditional zoning by putting conditions on you. But I think if we went that route and this board was chosen to look at it that way, to go with the conditional zoning to give you an approval, the conditions would be so harsh, you probably wouldn't be able to build it. With that being said, I think it's a great project. I did look up your other locations that you gave us. They look very nice. They did. I hope you can find another place in Graham. If the council doesn't approve it, we're just an advisory board to the council. We're going to take a vote on it in just a minute, but when it gets to the council, if the council does not approve it, I hope you can find another place in Graham for it. Graham needs affordable housing. Graham needs housing that people can have in a safe manner and feel safe and not have to feel like that they're going to get run over when they pull out on the Main Street. I don't know if you've been down there on Main Street early in the morning. You've got those schools right there near you. The traffic is just so bad. It's just not a good location. With that being said, if there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion. Anything else? I make a motion that we deny CR 2502 for the following reason. Rezoning the property would be inconsistent with a suburban residential and commercial corridor land use area due to the density of the development, but consistent with policies 2.2.1, 4.3.1, 5.1.2, and 5.2.1 as put forth by the Graham 2035 Comprehensive Plan. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Tate. All right. We'll go to number 7 now. Public comment on non-agenda items. Is anybody on the board here got anything to talk about on a non-agenda item? Anybody in the audience have anything about a non-agenda item they want to talk about? Being there's none. Cameron?
No, sir. I don't have anything moving forward, so I appreciate y'all's time tonight.
Thank you, sir. So with nothing more, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.